few weeks ago, something really cool happened, and I'm excited to share that with you today. I was in a Home Depot doing my thing, checking out the plant section per usual, and I stumbled across this bad boy. At first glance, regular Monstera, right? But when you take a closer look, you see this bad boy. You can imagine my excitement. It's always a good day when you're able to find a variegated Monstera for under 20 bucks. This was actually discounted as well. I've waited a few weeks. It's finally acclimated to my environment. A good sign that a plant has acclimated to your environment is if it pushes out a new leaf, which we have right here. Today we're talking all about Monsteras, so how to repot, how to care for them, everything that you need to know about growing a nice, lush, beautiful Monstera Deliciosa is gonna be in this video. Let's just jump right into it, talking about some of the care tips. When you first get your Monstera from the store, what you're gonna wanna do is basically just leave it alone. Fill the soil. If it's bone dry, go ahead and water it. But other than that, it'll be fine to just be left alone. You definitely don't want to overwater it. In my experience, I found that these are a little bit drought tolerant. So when I let them dry out, I let it dry out almost all the way. And if it does dry out all the way, that's okay too, because the roots are so thick and the stems are so thick. That's where the plant retains most of its water. As far as placement, if you're using natural lighting, make sure it has a nice wide view of the sky, so that way it could photosynthesize and the leaves can make as much energy for the plant as possible. When you're at the store and you're deciding which plant to pick out, I definitely like to go for the fuller, bigger, more mature plants, because if you're gonna buy a plant, you might as well buy a plant, you know what I mean? But what you can also do at the store is go ahead and check the roots. And this is kind of what you want to see. Nice, healthy roots. The white and yellow tips mean that the plant is actively growing out those roots. The soil that this plant is currently in is a little bit too dense for my liking. This type of soil works great if the plant is in a greenhouse. For a majority of people, you know, if they're growing it inside their homes, maybe in their yard, and this type of soil is just going to retain too much water. So what we're going to do first is go ahead and remove the plant from this soil. And for this, I usually like to use just kind of water pressure. I make sure the nozzle is on the jet mode and I just start going to town. I'm gonna go ahead and skip past this part. I'll meet up with you when all the soil is off of the roots. So at this point, we've got the roots nice and clean. We used water pressure to remove all of the old soil, and the roots are looking really healthy. That's what can happen when you water it properly and just take good care of it. So now that all of the old medium is removed, there's no gentle way to do this. We're gonna go ahead and separate each one of these plants and see what we end up with. And really with this, you just gotta go for it. Go ahead and pick one from the outside. Pull gently. I find that if you kind of give it a shimmy, it might help to loosen up those roots a little bit, but really just got to go for it, honestly. Oh yeah. Here is the variegated plant that we originally wanted. Not the biggest root system, but we can make it work. As you can see, there's going to be some casualties. It's part of the process. Don't worry about like damaging the roots either, because when the roots are damaged, it'll tell the plant to grow more roots. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 plants for the price of 1, and 1 variegated badass plant. I'm gonna go ahead, give these another rinse to clean off any additional extra medium, and then we'll go ahead and repot these. Got them separated. I'm just going through now and kind of removing any of the really small leaves or the ones with any leaf damage, like the one that you see here. I'll usually leave about 2 to 3 leaves on there, just so that way the root system is compromised. So by taking away some of the leaves, there's less demand on those roots to perform at the highest quality. So we go ahead, get rid of any of those old leaves, boom. And you can go ahead, go through the roots, just make sure nothing feels black or mushy. And if it does, you go ahead and trim it. So this one right here is damaged. You're gonna wanna make sure that your pruners are sanitized. I like to use hydrogen peroxide or rubbing alcohol. Just go ahead and spray them down. And then you go in and chop any of those old roots. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and probably plant 2 of these together. Locate the back of the plant. You're gonna wanna look for where the roots are coming out of. So since the roots are coming out of the back here, I know that the leaves are gonna face this way and the roots are gonna come this way. I'll be putting the 2 small ones together. So for this little variegated guy, I'm gonna go ahead and put him in this container with a moss pole. As you can see, I added some additional drainage holes all around the container, just so that way there's more airflow and more oxygen to these roots, because this plant really loves oxygen. In the jungle of where these plants originate from, they would normally find a tree to climb. And I'm gonna put this in here. It's gonna set this guy right into that container. You can see here, got this guy in here just like that. I found the back of the plant right there. That's gonna go up against the moss pole. I've got my chunky soil mix here. I'm gonna put that in the back of the moss pole there too. I like shaking the roots like that just to get all of that soil in between those roots. Okay, got myself a little bit of a Velcro strap here, and that's just gonna secure the plant to the pole so that way it can start climbing up that bad boy. And that is looking pretty good to me. So eventually it's gonna climb up this pole. This moss pole is gonna mimic what it would normally climb in the jungle. You know, these plants, they like to climb up trees. So this moss pole is gonna actually mimic that, and it'll help it develop bigger leaves even faster. So I'm excited to see this thing grow out. Just gonna go ahead and give it a nice soak. And your soil should be very well draining. It should just fall out of that pot all the way through, just like that. We have a couple options here. We could go ahead and plant all of these together if we wanted to. Personally, I don't like doing more than 2 to 3 plants in a pot, because then they kind of compete for nutrients and water and stuff like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put 2 in each pot. I think it's gonna look nice and full. Here's what I ended up doing with my other container that I have. So I've got the cedar board here, and I've attached some wire, some garden wire in the back. This way I could just hold up the plant like this if I wanted to when I'm watering it, when I'm feeding it. I also added some more holes all around the container, so that way the roots have access to more airflow. And I really like this because it's very low maintenance. It's gonna support the plant. The leaves will get big, not as big as if they had like a moss pole, but it's very low maintenance. That's something that I'm looking for with this plant. So we've got our container here. I think this is really, really cool, the way that there's holes in it, the way that this, you know, plank is supported. I'm excited to see that grow out. I use, you know, the heavier catch pots to help secure it. And I'm just gonna go ahead, I have my chunky soil mix here. Giving it a little shake like that helps all of the chunky stuff rise to the top. That chunky stuff you want all along the bottom to help out with that drainage. Even behind the plank there, go ahead and find the back of the plant. You could tell this is the back because the roots are coming out this way. I like to wrap up the roots just a little bit, just so that way we can fit that plant in there like so. We're going to do the same thing with this plant here. Wrap up the roots just a little bit, do what you can. Tuck all those roots in there, just like that. Nice and cozy. Get some of that chunky soil in there. I've been using this Miracle-Gro slow release fertilizer for a lot of my plants. I just go ahead, get a little bit in the hand and go around just like that. And here is what this guy looks like. Super sick. I love the cedar plank look. Over time it'll probably spread out, but right now I'm liking the way that it looks. I'm gonna go ahead and water this down. Try not to soak it, but get it wet enough, or just trying to get the soil a little moist so that way the roots can kind of spread out. For these two plants, I don't really plan on keeping these. I'll probably sell them or give them to a friend. So I'm gonna go ahead, throw them in a pot together and just call it a day. And there is the last one. I think it looks pretty sweet. Next thing I want to talk about is care tips for Monsteras. And starting out with, when you first see your Monstera at the store, it would be a good idea to go ahead and pull the plant out of the pot, check the roots, make sure they're looking healthy, make sure there's no rot going on, make sure that leaves are showing good signs of good health. When you take it home, you could totally keep it in the soil that it's in. There's no need to repot unless there's an emergency, you see that the roots are dying, something like that. If you do plan on repotting, if you don't like the medium that it's already in, the soil's too dense for your liking, kind of my situation, then just wait about 2 to 6 weeks for the plant to acclimate to your environment. If you repot it too soon, it'll put the plant into shock and you'll likely kill the plant. When it comes to light, these plants like medium to bright indirect light. What does that mean? If you have an east, south, or west facing window in your home, you could put it up next to it and make sure it has a nice view of the sky. In some parts of the world, these plants can grow in direct sun, just straight outside, no shade or anything. For example, in Hawaii, there's fields of these Monsteras just taking full sun, but in that part of the world, it has the perfect balance of cloudiness, of rain, of water, humidity, all those different factors. It's going to dictate a lot of the plant's health in the future. We'll talk about soil a little bit in this video. You want a chunky soil mix. These plants love to have air gaps in their soil. If you're not sure what that is, I actually created a free PDF guide that tells you how to do DIY soil recipes for not only Monsteras, but for succulents, cacti, philodendron, Hoya, whole bunch of different soil mixes in there. But if you don't want to
check out my free ebook,
then a simple DIY soil recipe that you could do is 1 part houseplant soil, 1 part perlite, and 1 part bark. You could find all of those ingredients at maybe like a Lowe's or a Home Depot, and that's going to help with airflow to those roots, along with just making sure that the soil doesn't retain too much water over time. I like to water my monsteras when they're basically completely dry. I let them dry out in between waterings. If you water too frequently, too often, then you are likely to experience root rot. I talk a little bit about fertilizer in this video. I like slow release fertilizers because they're low maintenance. It makes it a lot easier to just water the plant and it feeds itself basically. As far as humidity, they aren't super picky about humidity. Obviously, the more humidity that you can give it, it'll probably be happier. Around 50% humidity is good if you can, but again, they're not super picky. If you like this video, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things, show all the love. It really encourages me to continue making videos like the one that you're watching now. And if you have any ideas on what kind of videos I should make next, let me know in the comments down below. I think that's gonna do it for this video. Follow for updates, and I'll see you in the next one.